This video is about showing you that this is in fact what you're doing most of the time. It's not related to what is going on, but what has been. And it's about showing you exactly what that trauma was. Imagine if every negative feeling you have, every negative emotional response that comes up, were actually a replay of a past trauma, something that you might not even remember happened to you. And yet, you just replay that over and over again, pretty much with no relation to what is going on. So for instance, imagine a wedding invitation gets lost in the mail, and your reaction is, "Damn it! I was in an incubator for the first 2 weeks of my life." And doesn't that kind of sound a little bit absurd? How is the incubator related to the inefficiency of the postal service now again? Right? Or maybe someone passes by you recklessly driving because they have a medical emergency of some sort, and you scream out in rage, "Damn it, I was in an incubator." Again, it really doesn't make any sense. And yet, I bet you that this is what you're doing most of the time. So you're not free. You're not living in the moment. You're not responding to the moment. So how do you find out what you're actually reacting to if you're not reacting to what is going on? First of all, what you're always reacting to is your interpretation of the situation. And usually, that interpretation is heavily colored by what happened to you in the past. Yeah? You would agree with that, right? So you're not responding to what is going on. You're responding to what you think is going on. But that thinking is colored by what happened to you in the past. So how do you do this? Step number 1. Find a situation where you have felt a negative emotion of some sort. In our case, we can take the situation of the person who does not get their wedding invitation. So let's say your friend, a good friend, is going to get married, and they send, I'm going to send out my wedding invitations this week. And I'll be so busy. This is so much fun. Great. Okay. And the day before the wedding, you still don't have your wedding invitation. What is your reaction? Okay. So first, step number 1, what is the situation? Step number 2, let's take a closer look at your reaction. So what happens? How do you interpret it? And what kind of emotional response does that evoke in you? So how do you interpret it? Maybe, in this case, you would say, I thought he was my friend, but obviously I don't matter to him. It's like I'm worthless. It's like he's rejecting me. So, inside, maybe you feel anger, and in anger you decide, he's no longer my friend. I don't care about him. I don't have to have him as a friend. So maybe that is your reaction. So you interpret it as a rejection, that he's rejecting you. And what comes up for you is maybe anger, right? So that's step number 2. Now, step number 3. Looking at it from the outside, is it possible that there is some other explanation that might be more aligned with what actually happened? So in this case, we have the postal services that didn't do their job, right? So that was the actual situation. And yet, you did not respond to the actual situation. You responded to your interpretation, and your interpretation was highly colored by this something. What is this something? What is the trauma behind it? So at this stage, you might not know what the trauma is. But you will notice that if you repeat doing this kind of exercise over and over, every time there's something that irritates you, every time you become sad, all of these negative emotions that you get, you do the process for them, you will notice that very often you come to the same core. And maybe that core is rejection. You always tend to feel rejected. You try to react by rejecting others, so you reject them instead. So when you start seeing that, you will start realizing what type of trauma you may have suffered, even if you don't remember the incubator, for instance. And the trauma that you suffered is also an interpretation. So, for instance, a baby that is put into an incubator right after birth is very likely to interpret this as a rejection. They're not going to think about, oh, they're trying actually to save my life, and this is them showing their love for me and how much they want me and how important I am to them. They will interpret it exactly the opposite way. They will say, okay, no one wants me. I have no contact. They just put me aside. I have no contact with my mother. I have no contact, not even with nature. There's these fluorescent lights on me all the time, machines. And so the interpretation of the baby may be that of rejection, and that is what is stuck. And as the baby develops, this will become a hypersensitive point. So that anyone who comes close to something that could possibly be in some way interpreted as a rejection, they will push that button and it will take you back to your initial trauma and reliving it. You will not be reliving it by remembering exactly what happened, but by remembering the emotional response you had and your type of interpretation. So doing this process over and over will reveal to you which character structures are stronger in you. That way you can work on them in different ways. Also, in the moment, it will release you from the emotional charge as relating to the situation. You will notice that has nothing to do with the situation. And so you won't feel rejected by your friend when you realize that your friend did everything they could to try to include you, but it was the postal services that just happened to lose a van because there was a hurricane. I don't know. So you will know better your character structure, be able to work with that, and in the moment you will not be held back by your past, and you will actually be able to move and maybe even improve your relationship with your friend instead of just cutting it short and saying, you're no longer my friend, right? This is true with relationships. It's true with following your dreams. It's true with your life in general. This is something that has the ability of holding you back from being free, creative, and happy.